Okay, this is my 1913 Henderson. I bought it back in 1989 from a fellow who was one of the early legendary collectors here in British Columbia. His name was Buck Rogers, and he went around the province collecting all kinds of things back in the 1950s. He found this in the late 50s. At the time, it had no front end at all and really was a lot of pieces. And I bought it from him 30 years later in 1989, and it was still no front end and a real basket case. So I spent the next 20 years or so putting it together, finding the pieces, having a front end made, and getting everything all ready to go, and finished the restoration in 2014. So I want to show you a few things about it, tell you a bit of the story. I think we'll start here with the engine. Like all Hendersons, it's a 4-cylinder. This one is 65 cubic inches. This was the second year of production for the Henderson motorcycles, and they really made a lot of improvements over the first year models. They strengthened up the frame, they redesigned it, they changed the tank, the front forks, they increased the size of the engine, a whole lot of improvements that made this a really fine bike. This was really the beginning of the outstanding deluxe Henderson motorcycles. 4 cylinders, you can see it's got a Bosch DU4 magneto, which is what fires the ignition. It's got a Schebler carburetor, Model H, just like a lot of other motorcycles of the time, and an Eclipse clutch. This bike is a 1-speed. It's got a direct drive here at the rear of the engine. To run it, you just pull the clutch and engage the clutch, and then away you go. And when you want to come to a stop, you release the clutch, and that's it. No shifting. But even at that, the advertising said it was good for about 60 miles per hour. I can't verify that, I haven't, but I can tell you it's probably good for about at least 50 plus miles per hour. It's a very tall geared bike. Up here in front, there's the footboard and 2 brake pedals. Both brake pedals activate the same rear brake, and I think the reason that there are 2 brake pedals is so that you could put either foot down when you come to a stop. And that would be because the road conditions at the time might be pretty awful. So you might want your left foot or your right foot down depending on where the ruts and the mud and things were. So 1 foot down, 1 foot on the brakes. The footboard here gives you a nice seating position. The Henderson brothers, when they designed their motorcycle, they designed it much like a car on 2 wheels. And that's because they trained in the Winton factory where their grandfather was president. And so that's where you get the 4 cylinders, the seating position, and a number of other features that make it much like a car. Coming out here, you get a good shot of the gas tank. There's the oil tank is inside the gas tank here. It takes a couple of quarts of oil. And in the rear is the gas tank for, I think, 3 gallons. This tank was made reproduction for me by Jethro Smith of Antique Moto Works. He did a beautiful job making the tank. It's a real piece of art and really makes the motorcycle. He also made the seat pan for the seat here, and then I had it covered by Howard Heilman in Texas back in the 1990s. And again, Howard was the best. He did a beautiful job on the seat here. Coming around the back, the toolbox was made by Matt Smith at Antique Motorcycle Works. The fenders I made myself from blanks that I got from Matt, and I just had to cut them down and rivet the arms on and make them work. The tail light is a replica, but it's an acetylene light plugged into the tank up at front, which we'll see in a moment. The striping on this bike is beautiful. It was hand done by a fellow who lives not too far from me in British Columbia. He's gone now, but he was a real master at his craft. And he came over and hand striped every bit of this bike. Just did a wonderful job with the very fine pinstriping that really sets off the blue and the aluminum color, the silver color. Down here you can get a view of the engine. On the intake and exhaust side, the engine is all original except that it has modern pistons in it. I've got eggy pistons. The manifolds are original, exhaust and intake. It had new valves in it. I did the engine back in the 1990s, shortly after I got the bike. So it had new pistons, as I said, and rings, and a rebore, and new Babbitt bearing for the mains and the rod bearings, and new valves. and its engine's in great shape. It has a drip oiler here at the front. When you're running it, you just turn on the drip and let it drip through the sight gauge, about 8 or 10 drips per minute, and that goes down and gets oil onto the timing gears, and from there it makes its way into the crankcase to make sure your oil level doesn't go down. Coming up to the front end here, as I mentioned, the entire front end was remanufactured. It was made by a fellow in Quebec after I contacted someone in Ontario who had an identical motorcycle. He had an original 13 Henderson. In fact, it's the same bike that sold at auction for $300,000 last spring. And he took the front end off of that bike and had a copy made for me for this bike. So my front end was made from an extremely original bike. And that includes the bars and the forks and the spring fork here. Up on the handlebars is the acetylene tank for the gas for the headlight. And the headlight would not be a factory item. They didn't sell them, didn't include a headlight for the $325 that you bought it for. So any period headlight could have been installed at the time, and that's exactly what this is. Also on the bars here, I've got the pocket watch holder with the pocket watch in it. One hand has vibrated its way off, so it's down there and the glass needs to be removed so that can be put back on. But you can see there the clock is working, and it will run for 5 or 6 days, I believe, before you have to wind it again. And I've also got the horn on the bars here. Moving further around, in the front end here, we've got the Coker all-white tires. Those are about 20 years old, still holding up really well though. The bike has very few miles on it. I haven't driven it much at all in the time since I had the restoration finished. So those are the main points, I think, about the Henderson here. It's a really beautiful bike. It will look good in anybody's collection, or if any show you take it to, it's guaranteed to turn heads. And in your living room, it'd be just a great piece. So it's a work of art as well as a great machine. I'm going to turn on the gas, prime the carburetor. Retard the spark. I'll give it a few pulls to prime the carb. That's about it. Bye for now. There's an interesting piece down here at the foot of the brake connection. The way the brake rod attaches. In pictures from 1913, you'll see this on 1913 Hendersons. But somewhere along the way between 13 and 14, they changed the design of the mechanism underneath the footboard here so that this piece no longer existed, and it just pulled underneath and you don't see any of it. So this is one of the very few 13 Hendersons that I've seen that has the early 1913 style linkage for the brake connection, and that's all original. Likewise, if you look at the seat mount under here, the 1913 frames had a seat that mounted above the frame. Somewhere along the way between 13 and 14, they moved the seat down in height so that it mounted through the frame in here. Again, this is a 1913 frame with the proper 13 seat mount on it. The engine number on this bike is 1504, which it puts somewhere into the fairly early run of 1913 bikes. There's no real hard and fast numbers on when they started and finished the 1913s and began the 1914s, but this is certainly an early 1913 bike, and certainly the evidence of the seat mount and the brake mount, brake lever adjustment also attributes to that.